What's up YouTube, it's your boy Tits here, and today I want to explain how crit works in this game. I'll try to do this as fast as I can, but these are more detailed videos, more for the people that really care about builds, really care about how math works in this game. So, like the last video explaining how all the mods work, yes, it's detailed, but it has to be, because this game tells you nothing in the game. So, it's really hard to explain how everything works because it's super fuzzy in a game. Um, I mean, it's super, just kind of hard to figure out because they don't explain anything in the game. So, crits. How do crits get added up? Alright, so basically, let's see here. I'll have two websites here. I'll put both in the description. I also had the one I'm on right now is also in the last video too for explaining mods. So there's two types of crits basically. Well, first of all, there's a yellow crit and a red crit. Red crits I think like double damage normally. Um, like if you're in Loki's invisibility mode, you can do like a red crit. But typically when we're just talking crits, to get the math, there's just one basic equation. So let's go to a gun here and see if I can explain it for you. I'm on the well, I'm on the Paris. I've already, this has all been tested out and everything. This is how it works. I'm positive. I finally got the right info too, and I've talked to I've already talked to developers and everything. So a lot of people think, all right, base critical damage of the Paris, it's 150%. So they think, all right, I take 150% times my weapon damage and then add it to the weapon damage. That is my new damage when I do a crit. Wrong. I actually kind of thought this way a long time ago, but that's wrong. Um, you do take your crit damage and you times it, but not quite like that. They have it. First of all, having it say 150% is a stupid way of putting it on Wiki. It confuses a lot of people. So before, let's see, before we get to the mods, all right, we'll just explain like, let's say you're using a Paris, okay, and it's 150% crit damage. So the Paris does 100 damage when you do a charge attack. Charge damage. That's when your bows pull back all the way. Now, if it's also armor ignore. So remember, crits can also have an armor reduction. When you crit, it can be less than it's supposed to be, if you're shooting someone in a non weak spot. But that won't happen with the Paris because it's armor ignore. So with that in mind, let's say infested. When I'm shooting them, all my crits all over the body, because it doesn't matter where I hit them, it's armor ignore. I'm getting a 150 crit. So you say, wait a minute, shouldn't it be 250? Because 150% times 100, and then added to 100 is 250. No. The reason it's 150 is because what they mean by 150% critical damage is 150% is the damage you're doing. Like, basically, what it is it's a 1.5 multiplier. So, what is 1.5 times 100? Because, like, 1, it would be just be 100, or 100% would just be 100. Well, it's 150. So, when you crit with the Paris, you're going to do 150. And then, like, if you shoot the Ancient in the head, because you do double damage, double normal damage, but your crits play off normal damage, they work off that. So you do 300. So this is how crits work in this game. Now, how do you add in the crit mod? So let's say for a rifle, it's 120, right? I think it's 120. Yeah. So what you would do then is it would be a 1.2 multiplier basically. So, 1.2 and then times 100, basically your crit is a 120 crit. Now, you take the 120, you got the 120 and then the 150. So you have to add like your crit damage from the weapon, but then you also have the crit damage from the mod. You got to put everything together to get the final amount. What else? Let me see. What else was I going to explain? Oh, now we have to explain mods. Oh, sorry. Last thing. With the crit damage, you go off your base damage to figure it out. But also, if you have serration on, so let's say 100% serration on your rifle, and you're using, well, your primary and you're using a Paris, 100% serration brings your 100 damage Paris up to 200. Okay, so it's 100. In that case, it is 100% of 100, which is 100, and you add them both together, you get 200. Now that's your new base damage, 200. So then you got to take a 1.5 multiplier or 150%, and you got to times that by 200. So then you get a 300 crit if you have a 100% serration on. So that's how that works. You have to add in serration first. Lastly, your mods, elemental mods, can also crit too. I explained this in the last video, but in case you didn't catch it, it's later on in the video and it's a longer video. The way your mods work is you take your weapon damage times any weapon damage mod enhancer like serration, then times your mod value, which would be, let's say if it's armor piercing, it'd be 90%. No, 60% is what armor piercing goes up on a primary. Then lastly, you times that by the resistance the enemy has. So armor piercing shot at the head on a Grineer is 200%. That gives you the damage you do with your armor pierce. That gives you your armor piercing damage counter. Now, what happens if you crit with your Paris? If you crit with your Paris, not only do you see one damage counter, that's a crit, but you're going to see another yellow number. Let's say if you just had armor piercing mod on your Paris, you're going to see one yellow crit number, which is the Paris crit, and any crit mods added. Then you're also going to see the armor piercing mod damage, but it also crits too. So what you do then is you take your damage you already figured out that you do with armor piercing. So 100 charge damage for the Paris, and let's say let's say serration is not on it. So 100 times 90% armor piercing times 200% damage vulnerability, and then you take that amount because you critted, and you times it by, you use that amount and then do the math for the crit damage of the Paris, which is 150 or 1.5 multiplier. So whatever your amount is, you got to take it. Let's say armor piercing, and let me think. I think when I shot an ancient in the foot, I did, when I didn't, let me see, I did 150, and then I did 100 base damage, and then I did a 60 damage from armor piercing, and then when I got a crit, I did 150 armor piercing, or 150 crit damage for the Paris, and then my armor piercing damage was 90, because originally it was 60, now times it by 1.5, and you get 90. So you can do the math, but that's how it works. You have to times your full damage of your elemental mod, you have to times it by your crit damage multiplier. And then also, like I said, if you have a crit damage mod on your weapon, you have to also times your elemental mod damage by that crit damage mod too, and then add it in. Then you get your full damage. Sounds a little confusing, right? It really isn't that bad. If you got any questions, just message me. I'm trying to explain it as easy as I can. I'm sorry if you don't quite get it, but that's how it works. And this is why a crit weapon is so devastating, because of so many factors you have to add in for the math. Weapon damage, serration, crit damage, and then crit mod. And then also weapon damage, serration, elemental mod, and then times the bonus, then times the crit of the weapon, then times the mod crit. And then if you have multi-shot, everything you just got, you have to times it by 2. That's why weapons that are crit crit builds like the Gratica do so much damage. And you can't just look at their 9 base damage and think it sucks. It'll destroy a Gorgon, which has way more base damage than it. It's just how it works. And if it's an armor ignore weapon like the Paris, and it starts out with a really high base damage, with like 100 on the Paris, you're going to do devastating crits. Because, you got the 100 base damage, and then another 100 from Serration, and then you got 150 and 120 with all the crit. Then you got all your elemental mods you got to add in when you crit, and then if you multi-shot, you got to times it by 2. So you're going to be in the thousands and thousands. And then now do a 400% multiplicative on that with sonar shots. You're talking in the 20s and 30 thousands of damage per shot with your Paris on a sonar shot. It is ridiculous. And also, in my opinion, the best to use on high level defense missions. So there you go. That's crit math explained. I know this is a long detailed video, but it's more for the extreme, hardcore players that just really want to understand how everything works in this game, because they don't explain crap in this game. So I hope you guys understand now how crit works in this game, and you can do your own math for your own weapons and figure out what's best, and you won't be, left in the dark and confused anymore. So please comment, like, subscribe, and I will catch you guys later.